Well, here we are live on a Wednesday night, the 10th of June. It's Joe Rayo and Joe Chaffee, or if you prefer, Joe Chaffee and Joe Rayo on the Joe and Joe Weather Show.
And
Which,
what a humid day it was today, Joe. I mean, was outside doing a little weeding with the missus, and I was kind of hoping that I was somewhere other than the immediate tri-state area. I was hoping that maybe I could magically transform to Alaska or some nice cooler and drier spot. But you know what? This humidity is only going to be with us for about another 24 hours, and then it looks like a cold front's going to come to our rescue and dry things out, lower the dew points and the humidities for Friday and the start of the weekend.
well, I walked this morning early. I left at 6:15. I got back just a little bit before 9 o'clock, and I did close to 9 miles. But it was nice and comfortable. Actually, here today, where I am, we've had the we had a southwest wind from the get-go. So we've had a nice breeze, and it didn't get out of the 70s. But you mentioned about being soaked in the humidity, not half as hosed as I felt after I went out and bought my new vehicle.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just a little bit, uh, you know, I don't know if have you read Dante's Inferno,
Yes,
the
I have.
Divine
I had
Comedy?
my humanities. I'm going to say professor. I had a teacher in junior high school, Laura Petrusa, and,
Uh-huh.
and she taught us about Dante and Dante Alighieri, and
Yes.
yeah, yeah, I'm well
I
aware.
I've read it several times, and I spent most of this afternoon just trying to complicate what level of hell would be the appropriate place for car dealers.
Oh dear.
I have never ever enjoyed that experience at all. And I was hoping the last couple of times, because I am a Costco member, so I bought through their program. So you basically you walk into the dealer, you tell them you're with Costco, and they give you a price. And that's sort of what I did today, except that it was, I was what I did today, and it was awful. It was awful. I did buy the vehicle, but I left with the feeling that I left extra money on the table that I didn't have to leave, and it just leaves a very sour taste in my mouth. It really does.
Uh, is this a 2020 or is it a pre-owned
No, it
vehicle?
was a 2019 with only 12,000 miles on it.
Oh, lovely.
So I got it less than I would have gotten if I got it for brand new, but it's still I don't want to get too detailed in the experience between some of the salespeople, but basically it boiled down to one of them gave me one price, and of course I went back today, and that person wasn't there, quote unquote, and I got into another salesman who gave it to priced it $5,000 more than what the other guy did.
Uh-huh.
So it got it just got it just got unnecessarily stressful and ugly. Oh, and then just to top it off, and this has happened to me before. So before we get into the weather, but to top it off, so I'm financing it. Okay, so I go to my bank, which is Chase, and um, you have to do everything online, okay, which is fine. I have no problems doing that. So I go in to their website, and I'm a Chase customer, so I figure I'd get a better rate if I get a Chase loan, et cetera, et cetera. So you go to fill out the application, and this only happens to me. Only happens to me, Joe. You go out to fill out the application, so they're asking you what kind of car is it. So I bought a Nissan Frontier, a 4x4 truck. So I put in Nissan. So then it asks, what make is it? I click on the make box. The Frontier is not there. It's not listed. So I
Oh,
can't go to the next step. So I call them up, and their response was, "Wow, that's weird that it's not listed, um, but we can't really do anything about it." Okay, So I had to take take a loan from the car dealership at 5.5%. Okay, because apparently, and I didn't know this, if you want the original warranty on the car, unless you're paying cash, if you want the original warranty on the car, you have to take their financing, which is a good 2.25 points or more higher interest rate wise than uh, than you would if you went to one of the local banks. So I, that's fixable because once I get my the title, I can go to the bank and refinance it right away and get the lower rate. But they can't find the car. It doesn't exist. And there are no human beings around to help you. All right, so anyway, I vented.
Welcome to the 21st century.
Paul Roman hit super chat before the show even started today. So we give him a big thank you.
Thank you.
Correct.
There are a couple of comments upon you that you deserve a new ride, Joe.
Well, you know something, I'm 100 and because of this, because of I'm not going anywhere with this pandemic. I'm 150 miles shy of hitting 300,000 miles on my Toyota. Okay, and I'm gonna trade it. I'm gonna trade it in. I got $100 for it. Uh, since 2003. The thing is, I'm going to trade it in without hitting that 300,000 round number. And I struggled with that, and I thought, you know what? I want a new car. I can't drive this one anymore. So to hell with it. I almost got to 300,000 miles.
Why don't you just take the darn thing and just drive into, let's say, Queens and go around or whatever?
Because I'm going to tell you why. If I do, if I even remote, I could drive it to my mother's and back, and the miles will be there, and I'll get to 300,000. I guarantee you, I will not make it there, or if I make it there, I won't make it back.
All right.
I'm just telling you, with the way my luck is, that I'd have to pay for a tow,
right,
and whatever else. I'm not even going to risk it. Okay, for all intents and purposes. What's that?
Don't tempt fate.
No, I'm not. I'm not going to. So, severe weather tonight, Joe. Johnny Quest is super chat. Thank you, sir, very much. Thank you. Um, uh, the Storm Prediction Center this morning, when I saw their forecast, I mean, they passed go and collected $200. In fact, they did it twice because they went right away to a moderate risk of severe weather in southern Michigan and northern Ohio, and the enhanced risk down all the way. And I have to tell you, the radar, we've got some working. There were. Let me freshen this up. Hang on a second. We have actually a working tornado watch in southeast Michigan and northwest Ohio, and three severe thunderstorm watches boxes are up now. One covering much of the rest of Ohio, a new watch box that covers eastern Ohio and western Pennsylvania into West Virginia, another one into southern Kentucky. And meanwhile, Joe, there's some showers and storms that are running from about Albany to between Scranton and Williamsport, southwestward down into western Maryland. There are no watch boxes for that, but that's inside a slight risk zone. We don't have anything close by really to worry about for our general area that we cover.
I think it's going to be a case of waiting for the actual front, because the front is there where you're seeing the moderate risk. That's where the cold front is right now. And tomorrow, that front will be practically on top of us at this hour. Although by this time tomorrow, not expecting anything close to the potency of the storms that are happening right now over the Ohio Valley, but still, we're in a marginal risk for severe weather, and especially away from the coast, there could very well be some rather strong and gusty winds associated with a few of those thunderstorms. But between now and tomorrow at this time, Joe, I'm sure that many of us will be experiencing at least the risk or threat, if not have already experienced a thunderstorm in their neighborhood.
SPC actually expanded their area of marginal risk from earlier today. It was mainly from central New Jersey southward, but now they went all the way up into northern New England to western Maine and on up the Hudson Valley to northeastern New York. Long Island is in it. Connecticut is in it. Southeastern New England is left out. But they did. I think one of the issue for tomorrow is the timing, because it looks like much of this is going to happen tomorrow morning into early afternoon before the front slides offshore, unless the front does get hung up a bit. I'm just looking at the model's timing. But you know, if this front were timed, say for tomorrow evening, I think there would probably be a much better, more daytime heating, so there probably would be, you know, a much higher risk. Maybe they would have put it to slight risk. But marginal seems fair. I also think that given how saturated we are in terms of the low level moisture, and with a little bit of lift tomorrow, I'm wondering whether the main issue might be more heavy rain in some of these thunderstorms rather than, you know, there might be the isolated severe cell, but I'm thinking maybe that there could be, you know, one of these storms could produce some hefty rainfalls in a few spots. So I'm kind of leaning in that direction.
Right. And Quincy McCoy is asking, is it possible of a derecho setup, especially in Detroit, which is southeast Michigan, not just a tornado threat. The derecho that we had last week was caused chiefly by a long enduring line of showers and storms moving at a very rapid pace. In fact, actually bowing out, so to speak, in its movement. And
And
we had
you had a short wave that carried it along. I mean, you had a
right.
shortwave trough that moved along and remained intact as it moved across the country. I don't believe that we have the same setup this time around, but I have to tell you, the radar is impressive tonight across eastern Michigan, and then which I've just put up the shot now. You know, of course, eastern Michigan down through almost to about central Ohio and extending down into Kentucky, and that line stays intact. It's no wonder that the SPC went with the additional watch boxes to the east into Western PA and West Virginia.
Right, and that's, as I just noted a few moments ago, that is where the cold front, that is where the front that is going to lower our dew points beginning tomorrow night, and it can't come fast enough as far as I'm concerned. But you could see, as Joe mentioned, with the lines of narrow lines, but still very potent lines of thunderstorm activity, the oranges and the reds standing out. And I believe from reading the discussion, Joe, that squall line is going to continue moving eastward, but will kind of diminish some later tonight, and then
Right.
maybe begin to fire up again during the day tomorrow as it approaches our own neck of the woods.
Also seeing some cells and a few of them there down in northwest in Virginia and in North and South Carolina. Also in central Georgia, looks like some storms just passed through or just north of Atlanta and extending down to the Florida Panhandle. We've got some hefty activity inland up and down Florida, the Florida Peninsula from north to south, and then back up in the northeast in central Pennsylvania, particularly in south central Pennsylvania. It looks like a fairly strong concentration of showers and thunderstorms there at the moment. But you know, you see how the line is not really pushing east.
You got mail.
You got mail?
I got mail.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. If you want to know the one person on earth who's still on AOL, folks, here he is. Um, so
There's more of us than just myself.
Oh yeah, okay. So you got your showers, you know, these showers and storms in PA, not making much eastward progress here. It's mostly the line itself, the cells, the area is moving more northeast. There's not a whole lot of eastward movement here. So in terms of, although I am seeing, Joe, there are a couple of pop-ups now showing up in northwest New Jersey, and some scattered pop-ups in northwest New Jersey, northeastern PA. Let's pull up. Let's put up the
Well,
local.
I wouldn't rule out. I mean, it's so humid out there, but I would not rule out a possibility of a shower or storm popping up in some places overnight tonight, and maybe they'll be a little more organized and a little more robust tomorrow in the afternoon, just before the actual front moves in and through our area.
The Upton radar is back, by the way, and
Really?
north of Hunter, Well, this is a wide view that they have up. North of Hunter up to Albany. I I can see the cell that's in western Passaic, very close to West Milford, and moving over to the other side. The ones that were in eastern PA all of a sudden just died on the last couple of frames. Let's take a look at what we can see out of Mount Holly's radar. And again, here, not really in view. There really isn't much happening. And then going to the west uh, into PA. Here's Pittsburgh's radar. So they're there's a big cell east of between Pittsburgh and Latrobe. And then you can also see the line that is moving east toward Cleveland and extends southward from there down to about Columbus. And you got numerous severe thunderstorm warnings. So just go. Let's go a little further west and pull up the. This is the Wilmington, Ohio radar. I know, Joe. There's a ton of severe thunderstorm warnings that are running from along the lake from Sandusky to just west of Cleveland, and then extending, south to southern Ohio and down east of Lexington in Kentucky. So that whole area is just kind of holding together as it moves to the east. And let's see this radar view. Okay, we had that. I want to try to get. I'm trying to find State College's radar view. Here we go. So this is a pretty good looking radar. Some big cells just to the west of Harrisburg. A few places there west of Harrisburg, northwest of York, getting clobbered. Back, they're east of State College and south of Williamsport. So just kind of in that triangle I just described, getting hit with some big cells. And it looks like they just put up a severe thunderstorm warning for just outside of Washington, D.C., as a big cell fires up there. So pretty busy radars tonight. And we'll see for tomorrow. I'm going to be, again, I'm leaning to the idea that if we do get some thunderstorm buildups tomorrow morning with that front right on the coast, that some of them, that they're going to be more big rain producers and they're going to be, severe with destructive winds. That's just my feeling.
Yeah, yeah, and that's going to be the main the main concern I think with these storms will be very strong, if not damaging winds. Uh, Downpours, of course. Doesn't look like a big hail uh, threat, but there's always maybe some pea-sized hail associated with it. So it'll be active, I think, over the next 24 hours. And then once we get the front moving through our area tomorrow evening, the dew points will drop. And then I think looking ahead to the weekend, or at least Friday into the weekend, I think Friday and Saturday look very nice. I honestly don't see any possibility, even on Saturday, of a passing shower. I think Saturday should be dry, but then that weather front really doesn't move all that far away. It stays in our general vicinity and allows for a couple of waves of low pressure to develop on it.
Right.
And one of them may just by later Sunday to Monday, and then maybe another one for the middle part.
Yeah, you got the upper trough. The bottom part of that trough shears off Friday and then drops southeastward and cuts off in West Virginia and Ohio. So we're going to take a look at that shortly. The satellite tonight. You know what struck me, and I'm going to bring up the surface map. You look at the satellite. Obviously, this is all. The big driver is this upper feature that is lifting up into Canada. You've got what's left of Cristobal is now a big storm up in Canada. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to let's see if I can find. I'm going to see if I can find the Canadian the shot from Canada, so we can take a look at it from that angle.
I love how when we get near sunset now with some of these storms, it gives a real three-dimensional effect.
Oh, I know, isn't it great?
Yeah.
But here's the loop. I'll put a few frames on it. Take a look at this loop, Joe, because the southern edge of this loop goes down into the Ohio Valley. So once it gets rolling here, there it goes. You just what you just said, that three-dimensional loop, that three-dimensional view. Look at those storms, the firing up through Ohio. Very impressive there on the satellite, and also up into eastern Michigan. And that low, look at the signature getting up close to James Bay. This is that strong extratropical storm that has developed out of Cristobal, thanks to the deep trough in the west. And speaking of which, you get a really good view here of what's coming into the west, the next one, because we've been talking over the last few days about how there's this almost endless flow from west to east, and you're getting these big systems that are coming into the west, unusually strong for this time of year, and then rolling their way across. This is also, by the way, folks, this is a great example of when you get it doesn't happen very often. It You do tend to see it more in the fall, but here's a case where the non-tropical features in the upper atmosphere in the jet stream uh, basically take over with these tropical systems, and they transform them into these very powerful post-tropical cyclones. And oftentimes, the outcomes from the post-tropical cyclones can be as fierce as the when the cyclone was tropical. In this case, as a tropical storm. So having impact when you look at this in history, when you look back at this and everything is done, you're going to see this very long continuous track, including the post-tropical track that's going to take it across. It's going to make a right turn, move across southeastern southern Labrador, and then eventually heading out into the open waters and weakening as it approaches southern Greenland.
Yeah, it's amazing that. And I did we mention last week that somebody had said that the moisture, or at least the beginnings of this storm, actually started in the Bay of Bengal and actually worked its way into the Pacific Ocean and then across into the. It's amazing.
No, well, the Bay of well, I think the setup, because of what was going on in the Indian Ocean, made it very favorable for. I think that's what the reference is. I think that's what the reference was. Unless the storm from what was in the Bay of Bengal became whatever system that moved across the northern Pacific, and then I didn't trace it back, but that's quite possible. But I can't say for sure because I really didn't look.
Right, right.
But
And
nonetheless, it's not the first time where we've got the systems in the Pacific that wind up eventually as they become post-tropical and they move northward. You see that a lot with storms that recurve east of Japan and then wind up energizing the low in the Gulf of Alaska, which creates downstream effects to weather in the eastern part of the United States.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's been an amazing run for this particular storm system, and it looks like it'll come to an end, so to speak, once that weather front, that cold front, passes on through here about this time tomorrow, and also hopefully will put an end to this short run of moderate to relatively high levels of dew point, making it well, as, if I may use the term from Archie Bunker, stifle your shelves.
Yes.
It wasn't exactly a hot day, but it was certainly a stifling kind of day out there.
983 on the 18Z map analysis, and on the 21Z, a 985 low in Canada, halfway between Lake Superior and James Bay. Quite the powerhouse. And its circulation, by the way, and its impact, if you look at the isobars and how this is all plotted, the last isobar goes all the way down into northern Alabama. I mean, that's crazy.
Right. It's crazy. Yeah. What more can you say? It's been an amazing run for. I even forgot now already. I mean, we know it's Cristobal, but it originally was at least when it was all together in the Pacific, it was the A storm. What was the storm again? I forgot that name already.
What, the A storm?
When
Arthur.
it was in the Pacific.
Oh, Amanda.
Amanda. Okay. So it was Amanda. Now it's Cristobal, and now it's not even Cristobal anymore. It's just a big, the remnants of a part of an extra tropical powerhouse.
By the way, unusually dry day in southeast and south Texas. The dry air came in today. Dew points in the 50s, temperatures in the upper 80s and low 90s. And if you go further north and west, mid to upper 80s with dew points in the 30s across West Texas. And even up at Dallas is, if I'm guessing the right station here, it looks like Dallas was 90 with a dew point of 43.
And that doesn't happen very often for Dallas, does it?
No, well, no, not deep in the heart of the summer. No,
Right.
and I'm looking in Oklahoma where temperatures are in the low to mid 80s with dew points in the upper 30s.
Wow,
That's insane.
that's crazy. That we
And
associate heat and humidity for Texas. We
mhm.
don't normally see this. This is kind of like what you'd see in the desert Southwest.
Yeah, it just the large circulation of this storm just pulling down this dry air from Canada. Delightful in Iowa, 70s, temperatures in the low 70s with dew points in the upper 40s and low 50s. Same for Missouri, same up in Minnesota, upper 60s and low 70s. Although there's rain now, you start to get closer to the low center. Now you're dealing with some overrunning rain that's still going on in parts of Wisconsin. So from that standpoint, you've got temperatures hit around the 60-degree mark uh, with uh, with northwest winds. So that can't be too pleasant. And I'm just looking up in northeastern Minnesota, up around Duluth, where they're on the western side of the, a lot closer to where the surface low is. Low 50s with dew points in the mid 40s. So I guess for them that's pleasant, but it is a pretty raw day up in that part of the lakes. And then here we are, temperatures in the mid to upper 80s. Philadelphia got to 90 today. I didn't see what the high was at New York City. Did you happen to take a look?
I think it was 85. I think I could tell you it was 85 here. Yesterday was 92 up here. Didn't quite get that
Yes.
low today.
But you had the low humidity yesterday.
Oh yeah, well yesterday was, but it was even better on Monday. Yeah,
Oh, Monday was just, Monday was
I mean,
spectacular.
I said by the standards, normal standards of summertime, yesterday wasn't too shabby a day, both in terms of heat and humidity. Although it felt more humid yesterday when we compared it to Monday, and today, forget about it. I thank God I got my hair cut yesterday. Today would have been a super bad hair day to be out for
Oh,
any length
well,
of
of course.
time.
Uh, WPC on their latest 7-day forecast, and here's a hint with regards to maybe the week later Sunday and for the first part of next week with this stalling front. Some hefty rains for southeast Virginia and eastern North and South Carolina on the order of several to maybe as much as 4 or 5 inches in some spots. Also in South Florida, uh, 3 to 3, 4, 5 inches there. Showing for us, Joe, anywhere between a half an inch to an inch and a half rainfall amounts across central and eastern Pennsylvania. This does not include, by the way, what's going on this evening, but it does include what may happen tomorrow morning. So it's hard to figure out what the balance is. But we're looking at 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a half, and a little stripe of 2+ inches in northeast PA on up into the Catskills.
Well, I think tomorrow, of course, will be a day where showers and scattered thunderstorms will be an ongoing threat, and a few of those could be locally strong or locally heavy. And then maybe late Sunday, I think we can maybe squeeze most of Sunday out with dry weather, but I think maybe just to be safe, mention that late Sunday there might be a shower or two. Monday looks like a wet day. Again, a threat, an ongoing threat of showery weather. Then we'll get a break on Tuesday, and I think Wednesday of next week that'll be yet another wave moving along that old front. As I said, I think we had a couple of waves. We've got one coming for late Sunday and Monday, and then we got a second one for next week on Wednesday. And then hopefully we'll be able to push all of that gunk out of here and set us up for some dry weather for late next week into the upcoming Father's Day weekend.
All right, I just realized I've been doing this whole live stream tonight without my headsets. So if you can give me 30 seconds, I want to go get my headset so that just in case I don't want any feedback. Okay. So
All right.
so talk on the chat board. I'll be right back.
All right. Well, looking at the chat board right now, I know a lot of you are talking about Joe's old car and what to do with the old car. And Joe, I'm sure, look at that later. Dennis Cassia, please let it rain here. The pollen is horrible. We'll do our best, Dennis, for tomorrow with the threat of some showery and thundery weather. Jason Barry says we could use some rain. Lawns are getting dry. It's true, but I kind of like looking at. I did my lawn over the weekend, And for the last few days, it's kind of like just to look at a nice green carpet, so to speak. But yeah, I think it could use a drink or two, and we'll probably see that tomorrow. Johnny Quest,
Well,
lawn
if you
full of
want a drink or two, just give him some of my wine.
yeah,
What
Johnny
about?
Quest says the lawn is full of mold where he is. I'll tell you what else. The parts of my lawn, Joe, a lot of ant hills. I don't know if
Ah,
that they'll not the thankfully not the carpenter ants, but I mean those little teeny ants. And in parts of my lawn, you see the ant hills like here and there. And what are you going to do about that?
well, just not much. But yeah, carpenter ants, they can be a smidge destructive. All right,
Yes.
so let's take a look at the conundrum for the because it is a conundrum for the weekend. First off, with respect to what's going on tonight, the question earlier about the derecho. Here's the shortwave that's involved that with the thunderstorms tonight moving into southwestern Michigan down into Indiana, and then you've got this other stronger shortwave and upper low that's north of Minnesota that's wrapped up with the surface low. So you're getting these big storms that are ahead of the shortwave that is further south. This is not moving toward us. That's this shortwave is going to be lifting up to the northeast across Lake Huron and into Canada. So we're just basically just getting a little ripple here. The front coming to the coast, you got this upper high offshore, so the front's going to really struggle to get through here until later tomorrow when the winds aloft turn and the ridge flattens, so the winds aloft start to turn a little more westerly. So that'll push the front through and weather conditions improve. Now, what happens is Friday we've got another weak front coming through. And you and I both agree that front really doesn't have very much with it when it gets through here sometime Friday evening. It's really, or Friday night. It's going to be mostly a wind shift. Okay. That's because you've got this short wave, and you can see it here, right there in southern Canada, where you see the kinking. But the problem is the bottom part of this short wave, right in here, is going to separate from the main push that's going out east of Labrador. And then that trough is going to drop southeastward, and it makes this lovely little upper low back in western Pennsylvania, and then into Ohio and West Virginia. And then it drops down into southern West Virginia and over into Virginia by the time we get to Tuesday. So that puts us in this cyclonic flow around it for the early part of next week. The question for Sal Blandino is whether whether the impact of that upper low on Sunday, when it's still back in western Pennsylvania, is that going to be enough to drag some showers and thunderstorms northward? They're probably going to form down to our south and drag them northward. Now, it may wind up happening because of where the upper low is, that those for Sunday that you could see maybe some showers and storms more inland than near the coast, and then you have to wait for the upper low to shift further east to bring that into the coastal areas. Maybe that doesn't happen until Sunday night or Monday. I got a lot of questions about how Sunday may or may not play out. I'm still not 100% sure whether it may just mean more clouds and you've got showers on the radar, but they stay, say, West Jersey westward, or whether it's something a bit more dicey. But this is one of the things about the spring. You get these upper lows sometimes as the jet stream's trying to pull northward. You get these short waves that decide that what, I'm not going there. I'm just going to drop into the path of least resistance, which right here is near the Mid-Atlantic coast. And then eventually it does get kicked out. And then of course we still on target for Father's Day weekend, Joe, with a ridge off along the East Coast here. Maybe this is where those 90-degree temperatures get hit at Central Park, and that my prediction of no 90-degree readings at Central Park goes out the window on Father's Day weekend. But the model's been very consistent here with this idea of building a ridge in the east in the longer term.
Well, you've had 90-degree temperatures literally surrounding Central Park, especially in areas north and west where, and even south. I know Tom's River got to 90 degrees today again. I
Tom's
got
River
90
gets to
yesterday.
90 degrees. Tom's River will get to 90 degrees on a day where everybody else only gets to 85, and then they'll go down to 32 at night.
Yeah, 92 here yesterday, and a couple of days ago it was 90 degrees at LaGuardia. and it was only 87. I think that was on Saturday in New York City. So you've been lucky so far, Joe. Let's see how long your luck is going to hold out all the way on to that Father's Day weekend.
Yep. So here's our upper low. Runs up into Canada, and of course, we still have this flow from Canada. There's your trough that drops into the east over the weekend. Another big deep trough coming into the west that just kind of spins around. It hangs there because of what's going on in the east. That system doesn't have. It's kind of blocked. There's a big ridge in the middle of the country. Big upper high over Illinois. It's probably going to get fairly hot there in the middle Mississippi Valley and into the lower lakes come later next week, and then eventually that ridge shifts to the east. Uh, the trough in the west sort of flattens out, but it does start to look as we get toward now. We're seeing in the longer range, we're almost to the last day, 6 or 7 days of June. Um, Kind of a summery look to things, not an excessive summery look, but definitely starting to get that kind of summer look of the upper air that you start to see as you head toward the end of June and move into the month of July.
And Joe, it's so far temperatures, I guess, for the month of June have been right around normal, or maybe a touch above normal for the
Yeah,
first 10 days of the month or whatever.
I guess so. Yeah, I
Hasn't
haven't
been
really been keeping track.
nothing that has been abnormally chilly, so to speak. Um, yeah, so we'll see.
So let's run through the surface map real quick. We'll take a look at the tropics, and then we'll come to the chat board and do a little Briller Jeopardy. And here we go. Here's our, let's run it back a little further. I got it on the wide view, so if you're watching from other parts of the country, you can see what's going on in your particular area. But for tomorrow, again, these showers and storms just kind of line up. This is at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. The front is right on the coast, and then it's gone. And then, of course, as you said, Joe, Friday will improve. Saturday looks okay. The GFS tries to show some pop-ups, and I threw in the tiniest chance that there might be a pop-up on Saturday, only because of the front being so close by, and the fact that you do have a little bit of an onshore, a very slight onshore flow there. Maybe it might be enough to trigger off
Goodbye.
something on a sea breeze front. Ta-ta. Uh,
Ta-ta.
and then, of course, here's your problem for Sunday with the upper low. You get a little spin up along the Carolina coast, little inverted trough there, and you start to see some showers firing up. Let's just back it up. So here's Sunday. See, most of those are in eastern Pennsylvania, northwest Jersey, and points northward. And then the area shifts a little bit on Monday with high pressure up in New Brunswick. And then after that, you still have this lingering issue into Tuesday, and then it just sort of minors out a bit as we go toward the end of next week. And here it comes the setup to see whether we wind up getting hot for Father's Day weekend. Looks like a high off the South Atlantic coast. And not much action going on around the country for Father's Day weekend, just sort of typical mid to late June nonsense. The tropics, just real quick, I'm going to use the wide Atlantic view just for laughs, and you can, the hints of something possibly in the Caribbean where pressures are going to be a little bit low. The models seem to have backed off from this lately. The gyre is gone for the most part. There's still some residual moisture down there, but you always see something. And there's a little bit of lower pressures down in the southwest Caribbean, but the GFS is not really doing very much with it, nor is it doing much with anything else. And just for laughs, I haven't looked at the Canadian because sooner or later it's going to spin up a Category 5 hurricane somewhere, and I want to be the first to catch it. So let me just roll it back. And although now they did the upgrade, I know I joke a lot about the Canadian, but now that they did this upgrade, it'll be interesting to see how it behaves come this hurricane season. But at least on its latest run after 240 hours, Mr. Rayo, it's not doing anything either. So as you said yesterday, our guest from Weather Trends that we had,
Yes. Captain Kirk.
Captain
Yeah.
Kirk,
Right.
saying that it probably will be quiet hurricane season wise over the next couple of weeks. So
Right.
maybe he's on to something.
Well, he might be. That's what he portends to know is the future. He's got this unusual crystal ball, and he's really playing up the fact, Joe, that the Gulf Coast and New England are high on his list for possible tropical activity as we move into the heart of the hurricane season. That, of course, comes around the 10th of September. So we'll see how that all pans out.
Correct. So here we are. Let's do a little bit of Le Jeopardy de Brillard. As soon as I can find it. Here it is. Oops.
I'm looking to see whether or not I was sent anything for you, and I'm not sure if I did see anything. Let's see.
Okay, so the flag of Ohio, by the way, is a swallowtail.
Right, I saw that.
Yes. All right, here we go. You ready?
I will
he did. He
try
said
my
he
shot.
did. He said he did send you something, by the way. So
He did.
the category is temperatures. What was the highest temperature ever in Seattle?
Well, we think of Seattle being, right down, kind of exposed to the cooler Pacific winds, but I know every once in a while they've had. In fact, it was very hot there. Was it they had a record-breaking July, I think 3 years ago, or 2 years ago. I will say the highest they've ever seen in Seattle, 98 degrees.
103. 103.
Wow.
What was the
Oh,
lowest temperature ever in Seattle?
how about 28?
0.
Zero?
Yeah. Must have been some setup.
It must have
You
been.
know,
I didn't even
talk
think I
about
could.
talk about a deep trough in the west. Must have been some setup to bring the Arctic air down that far west. I mean, it does happen from time to time. You get the Arctic air goes down the west coast like that. But yeah, 0. And what film led the weekend box office for a record 16 weeks in a row?
The Godfather?
No.
No?
But I will tell you that just as a hint, that the only difference between this and most major networks is that this particular vehicle had entertainment.
What could it possibly be?
I've
I
used the joke before with reference to NBC when it was in third place in ratings many centuries ago.
I have no clue.
The Titanic. The old
Oh,
joke. What's the difference?
oh,
What's the difference between NBC and the Titanic? The Titanic had entertainment.
right, yeah. Okay.
Did you
You use
find?
that you use that for something else I was
Oh,
thinking of.
stuff gets rehashed on this channel,
I have I have
including the talent.
I I have Mr. Briller's question for you, for Mr. Chiaffi.
Before you
And
get to that, Alfred Phillips, 52 on the North Slope,
oh, it's a heat wave up there.
52. So if there's still ice out there, the polar bears are probably getting the last of the seals before the ice disappears.
That's true. That's true. Um, so here we go with a category. Category is a Key West question.
Okay.
What was the highest temperature ever in Key West? That's question number one of
I'm
three.
gonna say I'm gonna say 97 or 98.
Ding, ding, ding. 97 degrees.
Okay.
Not here, but
I didn't think it would have hit 100 because of being too much surrounded by water, as warm as the water is.
and
Um,
question two, ending in November of 2019, Key West broke their record of how many consecutive days with highs of at least 80 degrees. So
no,
how many times?
I remember this record. I remember them talking about this. Um, I remember that there was some kind of the temperature record that was set. I'm sorry. Read the question again. Say it again.
Ending in November of 2019, Key West broke their record of how many consecutive days with high temperatures of at least 80 degrees. So how many times in a row did they hit 80 degrees? At least 80
I
degrees.
would say, oh, I know it was a record. I'm going to say 200, 250.
Well, you're right in the middle of your range there, 234.
Okay, between 2 and 250. I
And
was
finally,
going to say 234 next if you would have pushed me.
and finally, number three. This is the bonus. This is the bonus question, Joe. It's an I Love Lucy, and I should tell everybody that if it's an I Love Lucy question, Joe will get it. And Joe, you better get it because if
Now
you
you've
don't,
really, now you've really put me in the
Lucy
spot.
was the Lucy was the only character who could make fun of what?
Oh, Ricky's accent,
Ricky's accent,
Desi's accent,
Desi's accent.
because everybody, because they coming from her would have been accepted by the audience, but coming from somebody else, um,
Well,
it might not have carried very well.
Ricky would sometimes say to Lucy, stop making fun of my English, and she would say,
That's
"That's
English.
English."
Yeah.
The only other person who probably came close to making fun of Ricky's accent was Bob Hope. When
Yeah,
Bob, for example, when Ricky said, "I understand a hot dog vendor called the whole thing,"
right. Yeah,
and he
exactly.
looks at Desi and he says, "You're trying to tell
Tell
me
me
something."
something. Yes. Oh, too funny. He said on that Bob Hope was a great line when he says, "I may never go back to NBC."
Well, that's after he got kissed by Lucy,
That's yeah,
right?
exactly,
Dun dun.
exactly. All right, so I guess that wraps it up for tonight. Thanks for being here, folks. Really appreciate it as always. We will be back tomorrow night, same bat time, same bat channel. I'm gonna go eat my dinner, which I haven't had yet.
Oh,
I'm actually finishing my wine before I have even had dinner, so I'm drinking on an empty stomach.
I may have my V8 spicy vegetable juice now. I have a little bit of that left.
Bill Ubers is rubbing it in for Sal. He says, "Is that a little bit of green I see over Rockaway Beach for the weekend?" You
He's never
know,
come. Sal's never coming back. You
oh
realize
no,
that?
he can't resist. But he spends he's got to spend his entire day reading every local weather post there is.
Okay. Well,
I'm guessing, but he's not here tonight, so we wish him well. I know I'm breaking his chops, and I understand that, but yeah, he's got his social life and he's got his thing, and weather gets in the way. He wants to make sure there's no interference in whatever he does down at the Rockaways.
right.
So anyhow, that's it. We're all good.
I'm disappointed that your guests never made an appearance.
Yeah, well, you know what? There's going to be hell to pay because I sent out. Okay, now I'm going to, since you brought it up, I sent out. I'm not kidding you. I figured that one of them would show up. Okay. Now I understand it was kind of last minute and people have things to do, and I get that. But you know what? It's the Joe and Joe Weather Show. This is the show to be on. Okay. It could make your career. It might break your career. We may break your career, but it is the place to be. So yeah, no, I sent out invites at the last minute. I was hoping that we'd get one or two, but we didn't. So we will just wait for another time, and when they do come on, we will shamelessly embarrass them,
All right.
and make them beg for forgiveness for missing out on what would have been a religious and life changing experience.
Absolutely.
You see what a glass of wine does to me?
Yes, I can see it.
I'm actually coherent.
Yeah.
All right, have a great night, y'all. I'll see you guys. See you tomorrow. Everybody, have a great night. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Who was it? It was the Fios One gang.
No, hold on.